All right, welcome to the Caddies United Happy Hour. I'm back with a couple of old school guests, minor leaguers, pros. These guys have come up and down. We love these guys. We've got Brad IV and Chad Antus, two caddies from, my early days of caddying. But let's introduce these guys. Chad, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Chad, good to have you here. I'm stoked. We'll get to chat maybe some of the old school stuff. Brad IV? Yo, so we got everybody on board. We're just gonna kind of dive in like we always do. It's mostly a few golf questions, a few random questions, and we'll just let it kind of go organically. But what I'm gonna let these guys know that are listening to this podcast, the Happy Hour podcast, is for one, we all got a cold beer. So cheers to you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Good to see you on the Zoom.
Cheers.
IV, what's your beer of choice there?
I'm a natty daddy, man. Natty light.
Natty Light. So you're getting
Times are
full
tough.
value. You're getting full value out of your beer.
Yeah.
Chad, what do you got? What are you drinking with us tonight?
It's called Trax. It's a double IPA. It's from a little brewery right by my house here. So I just
Where is
grabbed
you? Where are you again? In Florida?
I'm in Jupiter, Florida.
Oh, that's where all the action's going down. What'd you think of that Skins game the other day on Sunday?
That was cool. I started, the reason I came down here was to work at Seminole. So I started working
the course
there.
they played? Oh, is where you
Yeah.
how were you
So
got
I
your
started
start
working.
caddying or just your start in
Yeah,
Florida?
caddying. Yeah. I started there in 2000. And, I've been caddying there. I caddied there full time for a while until I started caddying on tour. Now I still caddy part time, when I'm home and the course is open and all that. So.
You'll go get loops out there?
Yeah, occasionally, he'll call me. The caddy master will call me, if I have my regulars come in or, it's super busy and he needs guys. So.
Man, I think the course was the big winner of that whole deal. I didn't watch a lot because I was busy running around, but when I saw the replay, I was like, oh, man. I've always heard about it, never been out there, but what a sweet place to – and,
It's cool, yeah.
I was telling IV before we got started that I was just reading a book, and it's the second book I've read in about 2 weeks, but the one I read before was called The Match. Did you guys ever read that or know that story?
I don't
know how to read.
It was a story. It was a match in the 50s, Pebble Beach, but that Seminole club, Donald Ross, they kind of mentioned that a few different times because of the connection with Ben Hogan, I'm guessing, right? Ben Hogan would go down there, and especially after he got injured.
Exactly, yeah, that's where he played in practice.
Guys from there where they kind of took him in at the Seminole. So it was kind of intriguing that popped up right after I read that book, The Match. But that's a great book and a great story about golf, way before our time. But so if you got started as a club caddy down at Seminole, what got you into the pro game, the touring game, Chad?
One of my buddies, I don't know if you know him, his name's Wally, caddied for Mario Tiziani.
Oh yeah, Wally, I remember Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Wally.
Exactly, yeah. He caddied at Seminole also, and he told me he needed a caddy for 6 weeks for one of his buddies, Doug LaBelle, on the whatever it was then, web tour or whatever, and nationwide tour. So I did that for 6 weeks, and then
what year was that?
That was 2003. That's when I first started, and I've been doing this ever since 2003.
2003, you got your start because of another club caddy coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go tour these few weeks, these month or whatever. I need somebody."
Yeah.
And so that got you hooked on the game, huh?
It did. My second week, I had a third place finish. So I'm thinking, oh man, this is awesome. You got some nice money and
at the hook. Yep, I know. Yeah. That's how a lot of us got started. Tour stopped in their town or something. So now, had you ever graduated from the Korn Ferry with any of?
Chris Tidlin. I think we got through the Korn Ferry, I think 3 times with Chris Tidlin. I worked for him for 10 years. Like after I started with Doug LaBelle, I started with him. And then
with Chris Tidlin.
We worked for 10 years together, yeah.
Wow, what an awesome dude too. So,
Yeah,
and that's
he's
why
great.
I kind of got you guys together because I know IV, you had done the same thing. So, where was your start first year to, or let's go back. Did you start like Chad at a club somewhere, or what was your backstory?
Never club caddy. I was a club pro.
Oh, club pro. Okay, so you
Yeah,
came out
yeah,
of the pro shop.
yeah, yeah. So 2003, same year. My best friend from high school, his name was Bob Sowards. He made it through Q school, and I worked for him at Q school, not knowing a damn thing about caddying. And he got his nationwide tour card. So he's like, "Hey, you want to try this together?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
So,
let's
what
go.
was
Let's
your
try it."
what was your status in the pro shop? You were just the guy that came in, opened up the shop, took tee times, folded the
No,
sweaters,
actually,
or-
my main focus was teaching pro. I was
Oh.
actually a head pro before I was 30 years old. 29 years old, I was a head pro down
Okay,
here
so
in
you
Florida.
had some pro shop status then. So that was a big move for you to go and caddy for your
Yeah,
buddies.
so to get away from teaching and the whole private golf club life, I was kind of like, yeah, let's try something different, you know?
And you
And
always knew you had that card kind of in your back pocket if you needed to,
yeah,
right?
I could go back, yeah, for sure.
How old were you guys at the time in 2003 when Bob qualified?
I would have been, what, 31?
Okay.
Something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
32.
So it's still young enough to make a change and bounce back if you needed to do something
Yeah,
else.
yeah. So I worked for him on the nationwide for about a couple months maybe, and I realized that this is going to ruin our friendship.
Oh,
And then I was lucky enough to we still travel together, still room together a lot, and hooked up with Kenneth Staten. And
Kenneth Staten, it
Kenneth
sounds
Staten.
familiar.
That was he had long hair.
I remember.
You remember Kenneth? Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my first full-time job. I worked for him for almost 3 years, right out of the gate.
Really?
Yeah,
So,
he kind of taught me how to caddy.
right. And
Coolest dude ever.
And I get it because a lot of times, I mean, you have a golf background, so that's pretty big. But even for a guy like me, I mean, I went to the minor leagues and learned the competition and how to caddy with a few guys. And it's like you said, 3 years with the guy, and you saw all the scenarios. So when your players started to progress up the ladder, and you got into the higher pressure situations, you kind of knew the deal. You weren't as green. It took a little while to do that. And I think, unless you've got a Dustin Johnson or a Xander Schauffele that are going to keep you in those high pressure situations or even win 2 or 3 weeks in, you still have to kind of learn the ropes, even in the show or in the minor leagues. It's kind of a cool backstory to hear that, because I remember kind of, my time in the minor leagues was the same. If I wouldn't have traded those times for anything in the world, all the money or any of that stuff, because you learn to caddy.
I mean, it's priceless what you learn. It is.
I agree.
It
Priceless.
really is.
The handful of guys, we know some guys that have never been down there. And I mean, that is so lucky to not have to come from that background.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I think everyone I know
just
started
I kind of want to dive into this because when we talked about having you guys on through text messages, Brad, your story was just unbelievable. So I just we'll start there and we'll kind of get through it. But for our listeners out there that don't know who Crash Davis is the catcher in Bull Durham that spent his entire career in the minor leagues, and he would bring the pros up, these pitchers, and they would get to, they would become superstars, yet he would always stay in AAA or whatever. So Brad IV kind of is the self-proclaimed Crash Davis, and we'll let you tell us why. So just start with your story there, the first time you kind of made it through, and how that, the wins and all the stuff, because I love this
Right.
and the idea of this.
the whole Crash Davis thing is he had the record for the most home runs in the minor leagues. Is that a record you want to have?
That's right.
I mean, probably not.
Yep.
So, over the years, I've actually graduated 6 different times, 7 wins on the nationwide web, Korn Ferry, whatever it's called now.
Before you go any further, the very first win, how much was the caddy payout? Let's just call it the 10%.
2005 Panama, Vance Veazey, 9,800, I think.
And the last time, win number 7, what was it?
This is what's scary. Last year, I won twice with Robbie Shelton, and I think it was only maybe 10 grand, 10,200. It wasn't much.
So you said 2005 was
Yeah.
the first time, and last year was 2019?
Yeah.
And that was maybe a $2,000 increase. Man, it's amazing, huh? What a
Crazy.
battle those guys are going through in the minors on the Korn
Yeah.
Ferry.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, 2005, Panama was considered a big purse, you know?
Yeah.
And then down on that tour now, it's 600,000 is the purse almost every week. I don't know how it is. It's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is what you have to do, you know?
Right. That is what you have to do. So just take us through all your players, all the graduations of you going up, what would happen to cause you to go back down, all that kind of stuff. Because I think that's good entertainment just to get it out there.
All right. So my first win, Vance Veazey, 05, that was a unique one because do you remember Red Whitlock?
Yes.
Red was caddying for Vance. Red couldn't leave the country. I was caddying for Ken. I actually went to Panama City a week early because I wanted to see the city. I heard it was pretty cool.
It is,
yeah. This was before cell phones and stuff. I'm emailing Ken back and forth, what day are you going to get here? And he emails me from my hotel lobby, where the only computer you could get to. And he said, hey, man, I'm 9th alternate. I can't make it. I'm not coming. Oh, no. I'm down here committed for 2 weeks. Now I don't have a job. So I go to the golf course, and I see registration, and I leave notes. Who hasn't registered yet? I'm in Panama. And it come down, the last person to register was Vance. I see him at registration. I said, Vance, Ken's not getting in. I'm down here. I need a job. He said, I was just going to hire a local. I was like, man, please. I need a job. He's like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. We win.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's a
so
good story.
So, and it was a cool situation because we won, and then he took me to Australia, New Zealand, which was the next 2 tournaments because Red couldn't get in there. So I got to go to Australia, New Zealand, understanding that that was the only 3 tournaments that I would work for him. And it worked out perfect. I got back to the United States. Ken started getting in tournaments. But I count that as a player that graduated because he got his card that year. So, yeah.
Did you go to work for him on the tour?
No, he ended up getting Mercer Leftwich.
Oh, Mercer. Okay.
Yeah. So at the end of that,
I get it. It's like saying if you caddied for a guy, and I have heard that this happen, and they finish, number 1 in the FedEx Cup, but use 6 caddies to do it. I mean, you're still part of that FedEx Cup win.
Yeah, right.
And the caddy even paid out a bonus to like 13 caddies he used in the 1 year for whatever he might have been top 15 or top 30 in FedEx, and he had 15 caddies, and each caddy got a little bonus.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that same year, I got Michael Connell through Q School, back when you could get your tour card through Q School. Worked for him. The agreement was West Coast only. We missed every cut. So that was the agreement. Whatever, I was happy. Whatever, I had never been out there before.
So that Michael Connell was basically your first shot at it.
That was
the show.
My first West Coast of the show, yeah.
What year was that again?
That would have been 06.
06, okay. So cool.
Yeah. Then I hooked up with Justin Boley, worked for Boley for 8 years.
8 years, that's awesome.
Yeah. We won 3 times together. He graduated 4 times. Never kept his card. 1 year he did finish 150th, which is
on
like
the number. They gave
that's like
status.
That's like
so for everybody that doesn't know, top 150, you get some kind of status. It's very limited, 10, 15 events, and even nowadays they're getting scarcer and scarcer, but you still do have some status. So out of the 4 different times he came up, it just couldn't. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that?
I mean, great guy. I've worked for really, really cool guys.
Yeah. Great
guy, great demeanor. He wasn't the longest player on tour. He could chip and putt the shit out of it. On that minor league tour, it's a putting contest. So he'd go down there, he'd make $300,000 and get up on tour, and all of a sudden guys are hitting it 50, 60 yards by him. That's a big difference. You can't chip and putt your way out of that. So it was just a distance problem.
Yeah, I got you. All right, that makes sense. But 4 times is pretty impressive to get through. So how many wins in the minors did you have with him?
3 with him.
So now we go Vance Veazey 1. You had Boley 4. That's 5, and 2 with your current player, right?
We skipped Adam Shank.
Oh, Adam Shank.
Yeah.
So you have 8 wins?
7, only 3 with Boley.
So 3 with Boley. I thought you said 4. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, he won 4 times, only 3 with me.
Oh, okay. He won. All right, there you go.
So I got Veazey. I got Connell through Q School. I got 3 with Boley. And then I went to work for Tyler Duncan.
Yep.
So I actually had way back in the day worked a couple weeks for his uncle, Andrew Johnson. I don't know if you remember Andrew.
I remember Andrew.
Yeah. So, and he had hooked me up with his nephew, Tyler. And I worked for Tyler for half a year. And he called me and he said, "Hey, my college roommate made it to finals of the web, and can you work for him?" I was like, "Sure. What's his name?" He said, "Adam Shank." And I was like, "Whoa." He goes, "No, he's good. He really is good." So I went to work for him at finals and then ended up working for him for 3 years. We won and graduated and worked for him for a year out on tour. And that's the only person that's ever fired me.
Adam Shank.
Yeah, fired me after Hartford. He missed 5 cuts in a row, and he dropped below the top 125 on the money list and freaked out.
Yeah.
And my only firing.
Out of all the players.
Yeah. Everyone else, I've just caddied right into retirement.
Well, you're not really officially a caddy unless you've been fired. So.
All right, so yeah. I guess a
got
couple years ago I became official.
Oh man. Chad, let's get over to your situation when you started in 2003 as also. How long was it before you hooked up with Tidlin and you guys graduated to the PGA Tour?
Well, I did those first 6 weeks for Doug LaBelle, and I was ready to go home, and we had been paired with Chris Tidlin. I think 3 out of those 6 weeks we were paired with Tidlin Thursday, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to spend 6 rounds with him in those 6 weeks. So we got to know each other a little bit, just talking, and So after my 6th week was up, I'm getting ready to drive home, and I get a phone call, and Tidland's caddy got in some trouble and had to go back home, and he needed a caddy. So he got my number from another guy and called me and asked me if I wanted to try a couple weeks. He said, I don't know how long my other caddy's going to be out. I said, yeah, sure, I'll try a couple weeks. And so we did a couple weeks and finished at 2 weeks, and we just loved working with each other and really liked each other. And he asked me if I wanted to keep going. I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. So then we went, overall 10 years, but it took us, I think it was our 3rd year on the nationwide. The 2nd year we finished, it was 20 players qualified for the PGA Tour through the Korn Ferry Tour. And we finished 21st. We were 20th going in to the final, the tour championship.
Oh, yeah, that's a heartbreaker.
Yeah. And we finished 21st. And then so went to Q school and didn't get through there. So we went back to the Korn Ferry. And we didn't have a real great year the next year, but the following year he won at Boise, Idaho.
That's a big one. Yep.
That was a big one. I think the 10% was 13,500, which was huge on that tour. Then, it was one of the biggest purses. So he got his card that year. And then, but after that, he just kept going back and forth. He only kept conditional status the 1 year. I think he finished like 140th.
And that's also one of those scenarios where these guys, it kind of like what Ivy was saying. I'm guessing that, I don't know if it was linked, but it was one small aspect of the game that when you get to the show, you see the flaw, and then next thing you know, you go back down to the minors and you dominate again, but then you're back to the show, and it's kind of the same thing. I don't know if the guys don't learn, or especially when you go back and forth so many times, it's just such a tough game for these guys.
Oh yeah.
The difference can be, like just a hair, just a fraction, a millimeter.
It's not much at all. Yeah, I agree.
Not much at all.
I think with Tidland too, I don't know, it must have had something to do with he was missing something, but a lot of it was, he was very injury prone. He had all kind of injuries.
Oh, you're right. You know what? I know.
And so he had a lot of time off, like 2 of the years on the PGA Tour. He had to take some time off, one for injury, and then another time his wife got real sick, so he had to take time off. And he's actually playing well then too. It just was unfortunate, things went wrong at the wrong times. And so you had
after your run 8 years, which is a long time. You guys both had long runs with players that, they kept you around because they would make so much money in the minor leagues. And then you go up to the show and you'd kind of grind it out, make a little chicken scratch here and there. Have to go back down, dominate again. But after the Tidland run, what was the next time coming back up to the show? What did you have to do after that?
After that, I just kind of got hooked up with Brett Wetterick.
Oh, yeah.
Who had
right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, status on both tours. He was a past champion on the PGA Tour, but had full status on the Korn Ferry Tour. So we were going back and forth, and then he didn't end up getting his card back from either tour. So I went a full year with him on the not a full year, but almost a full year with him on the Korn Ferry Tour, and then he had an injury which took him out the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And then I just picked up a couple guys on the Korn Ferry Tour and ended up, I think I got hooked up with, Heath Slocum was my next job. And he asked me to go to the finals. This was when they had the 4 events, for the Korn Ferry like they do now. They have 3 now, I think. But and we got through that, and then I worked for him.
So that got you another year of status, like full status, PGA Tour status.
PGA Tour, yeah. Exactly,
yep. Yeah. Awesome.
And then he didn't keep his card, and I worked for Nick Thompson for a year. Lexi's brother, and that was actually, like Brad said, that was my only firing, was Nick Thompson, but it was kind of mutual. We were just kind of ready to, we went a whole year together. We went to the finals, the Korn Ferry Tour finals together, and didn't do well there. And we just kind of were ready to move away for each of us,
So I'll ask you guys, and y'all can both take turns trying to answer this question. But ever since we've started doing this, this with the Caddie Network and kind of creating content and stuff like that, a big question all the time from people is, well, how do you become a caddy? What's the move? How do you start? And I know you've answered it a million times, and I've answered it, and my answer is always kind of the same. It's, go to the minor leagues, go to the Korn Ferry, figure it out down there. And with the experience that you guys have, not that it's any different probably on the PGA Tour, but how do you go about getting a job in the minor leagues when you're down there? I'll start with Brad. You answer. You give us your answer first, and just what's your take on what you've seen over your years of these guys, how they're picking up bags?
I mean, it's 100% networking. I've gotten lucky. Obviously, I had success down there, so I've gotten some pretty good players. When I picked up Robbie Shelton, I didn't have anyone. Shank had let me go, and I was determined. I'm going back down to the Korn Ferry Tour, and I don't care. I'll go down there, and I'll try to graduate someone, because that's the only way to get a job on the PGA Tour nowadays. And lucky enough that through the grapevine, this guy named Robbie Shelton needed a caddy, and I got a phone call. I'd never heard of him. I Googled him, and I'm like, whoa, this guy's good.
Diamond in the rough.
Yeah, man. I talked to him. He said, let's just try 4 weeks, beginning of the 2019 season. And, we just clicked. Everything was cool. He's quiet. I'm pretty quiet. Dude's got the best demeanor on the golf course I've ever seen for a 23-year-old kid.
Right.
Like, wow, I've got something here. And again, there's part luck involved.
Yeah. So, okay, so we get it. There's luck, but let's just say the guy that's coming off of Twitter asking the questions, he wants to know, and like every tour caddy says, go to the Korn Ferry. But if you don't have a network, what's the move? We'll go to Chad. Chad, what's the move? What would you tell somebody that says, hey, I'm here at the Korn Ferry. What's my very first move?
I agree, though. I always say, sometimes in the pro-ams on Wednesdays, some of the caddies will start asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I say the same thing. I said, it's nearly impossible to just jump on a bag on the PGA Tour if you don't know somebody or something like that.
99.9% impossible.
Exactly. So you have to, your best bet is to go to the Korn Ferry Tour. I said, pack up your car and plan on just driving everywhere you can. Because, financially, it's very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And, you just have to, like Brad said, you got a network. You go, guys just hang around in the parking lot on Mondays and Tuesdays. I said, you can go to the qualifiers. They have the Monday qualifiers. There's 14 spots available, I believe, for, I don't know if it's the same now, but I said, that's a way. You can make an extra $50, $100. Guy might get through. He might not. If he gets through, then you got a job. And I said, there's ways to keep going after that. If you top 25s, you go another week. And I said, but I always say, you've got to be prepared to possibly lose money, probably lose money. But, it's all about just trying to get your foot in the door. Hopefully, like Brad and myself, you get with somebody and bring them up to the next level, to the PGA Tour, where you can,
it's almost like you have to look at it as an investment in yourself and what you can do.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a gamble. Yeah, we're gambling. We're gambling on our golfers playing well and how much we can help them.
Lures the caddies ever since the start of tournament golf is the fact that you're going to gamble on what you're going to make. One caddie's going to be the jackpot winner every weekend.
Exactly.
That kind of drives us all, the competition of it. How many times, because IV said he had 7 wins, how many times did you win in the minor leagues with either Tidlin or, Weather or any of these guys?
2 wins with Tidlin, one in Boise and the other one was in Wichita.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
So the cool thing is that, although the 3 of us don't spend much time together or chat or any of this stuff in life over these careers, we have a lot in common. IV, you and I both have a win with Vance Veazey. My first win ever was 1999 at the it's the Korn Ferry event, and back then it was called Nike Tour, and we were in Raleigh, North Carolina at Raleigh Country Club.
Oh, not
Raleigh Country Club, which is Donald Bluff. And then Chad, you and I, the fact that we have 2 wins. I have 2 wins in the minor leagues.
Right.
Which is the second one was with Ches Reavie in 2007. And that was in Knoxville at Fox Den, which is kind of a cool place too. But that's kind of the, what do you call it?
That's one of my wins.
What?
I've won there.
Oh, see, and
almost,
look the 7 degrees of separation or whatever they call it,
That was my second event ever with Doug LaBelle, and we finished 3rd there. That was the week that at Fox Den. That was the week I was hooked.
That's when you were hooked, right?
Right after Fox Den, yeah.
So let's fast forward to now we're in the show. Like you said, you got the West Coast with Michael Connell, IV. What was when you look back, what year was that? 2007? 2006, and because the West Coast is something else. So you're coming in as a caddy.
Wow.
And count
so many golf courses.
Count the courses up.
Right.
That's a lot.
Wow.
3, 6, 8 at just 2 of them, or at 3 events. There's 8 courses, right?
3 events, 8 courses. There
3,
exactly.
6,
in every
8,
single tournament except for 2 is multiple courses, right? Phoenix and LA. And Hawaii. So there's 3 courses that are a single course. So
so here's the story about that. We flew to Hawaii. Connell ended up being first alternate, and he wasn't going to pay me.
Oh boy.
Whoa.
Oh boy.
I was like, I came all the way over here, man. I gotta give me a salary. So he asked some veterans, and they go, yeah, you gotta pay him.
You gotta pay.
At least cover costs, yeah.
Yeah. So, but he didn't know. It was his first trip too.
So that's kind of,
in
retrospect, you knew it was probably doomed from the start because, if your guy's that green, not knowing. But
the good thing about that whole him not playing good on the West Coast, and he only agreed to the West Coast, is he only made $50,000 that entire year. So I probably saved myself a little bit of money.
You're exactly right. If that was the kind of year he had 50,000 for the entire year, you would have been upside down. It would have crushed all your work. Exactly.
Upside down on the PGA Tour. That's not good.
No.
So then the next time you came out to the West Coast, did you feel a little sense of, like you'd been around once or twice?
The first full year with Bowley, I'm back in the day when the yardage books weren't that good. I'm the guy that I go out there, I do my work, I shoot numbers, I try to be as prepared as I can. And I think a lot of the other caddies probably saw me out there, and they're like, all right, this guy's working hard. You got guys that just don't do anything, and they're not going to make it. You got to show that you want to work hard.
Other players see it too.
Yeah, players see it, caddies see it. So,
and back then the books weren't good enough. You had to do that extra work. I mean, if you didn't have the correct yardage, what happens. But now we have such good books, you don't have to really do that anymore.
Yeah, it's
and the fact that you've been around the courses so many times.
Exactly.
But, and we can talk about the books. But Chad, just quickly, tell me about, your first experience on the West Coast and what kind of pressures did you have of, one, having to figure out all these courses, two, all those caddies in the parking lot wanting to know who you were,
Right.
eyeballing your guy, Tidlin, right?
Right.
Who comes
Yeah.
from a storied program, won national championships. So, he
Yeah.
was kind of a, those guys are connected guys when it comes to that. Did you feel like you were having just to have to fight just to stay on the bag through the West Coast, or did you kind of get a sense that you were like, all right, my player and I are good, I just need to make sure that I know these courses? What was your take on the whole West Coast first time around?
Yeah, luckily, like I said, luckily for my sake, we were together for 3 years. So, we were very comfortable together, before we went to the PGA Tour. So I was never, worried about that, but I mean, guys are talking to them, that's, it still happens all the time. But yeah, but I mean, on the West Coast, it's funny. The first time we got to the PGA Tour, we were, I think, 5th or 6th alternate in Hawaii. So he was excited. He took his family out for a family vacation. He was going to do the Monday qualifier. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I mean, obviously I want to go. I said, it's, obviously expensive and you're taking your family. And he says, well, why don't I just go out? If we get closer, Sunday, Monday, when we find out Monday what alternate we are, or if I get through the qualifier, maybe you can come out. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. And he happens to get through the Monday qualifier. His wife caddied for him in the Monday qualifier, and he got through. And one of my other buddies, Chad Roseneck, he was out there with his guy, Michael Long, and his guy didn't end up getting in. So we just worked it out. And I says, Chris called me, and he says, why don't I just get Chad to work for me for the week? And, we'll start next week in, I guess, San Diego. So it was a weird first week. I'm watching my guy on TV.
Oh.
Yes, he unfortunately missed the cut, but it was just a
the
hard
cut,
week for me.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. It's one of those scenarios.
Yeah.
If you're a caddy and you take off for a wedding or something,
Oh my gosh, it's a win. It's yeah.
They call that
90% of the time.
Oh yeah,
it's a win. But yeah, and then we met out in San Diego and did the whole West Coast. But another thing, when you come off of that status too, you don't get in the whole West Coast. You only get in probably 3, 4.
Yeah, no Phoenix, no LA.
Yeah.
And even before there was the FedEx Cups, the LA was big and Phoenix was big.
Right.
But the multiple course tournaments you would get into.
We got in those, yeah. But yeah, like you said, you had to learn all those courses. This is my first time out there. It's sort of overwhelming, because you want to get out there and get there as soon as you can and at least see the courses before you go out and play them. So that was always my goal, even before the practice rounds. Yeah.
So much daylight, so you're really scrambling. Exactly. And
right, yeah. But luckily,
so the pressure's on for every graduate from the Korn Ferry and the caddy they bring to really get those courses. I mean, and you see these young guys now. I mean, and we can call them young because we've been around so many times now. But you see them out there with the sticks and the lasers and 2 or 3 at a time, and you're like, man, I remember when I used to have to do that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it was hours and hours of work. And if we could pair up with each other, I'm sure Brad and I paired up at one point. Somebody goes puts the stakes in, and other one lays.
Yeah.
And now you guys don't really have to do that much unless it's a new course or, maybe you recheck something on the par 5s if they've kind of changed the layout of here or there. But that going in and you're like, all right, let's go out to number 5, get it all done, and then we're done.
Right, yeah. Or else if there's a brand new course, I mean, those are the only ones on the, you've seen the other ones so many times, but, every once in a while you get a brand new course, then you got to go do a little extra work and
and if you're walking the courses, it's basically just for the exercise of it. And, like you'd see Bones stroll right down the middle, or every now and again you might see La Cava strolling right down the middle, and not so much that they're, like the youngsters over under the tree to the right, or, getting a sprinkler head from the water meter up to the left or anything like that. They're just
Todd
kind
Montoya doesn't even do it anymore.
No, yeah, that's
right.
that's
And
when you know the books are
he
good.
would
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, he would do it and carried 3 or 4 yardage books.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
But
But
I always said if I'm doing it the first time, I'm going to do the best job I can at learning this golf course and notes,
Right.
and then I can just every year transfer the notes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had to do it all this year because you got to get a new yardage book because of the regulations on the green side.
Which was
Right,
a year later for you. We went through all that, the year before.
Yeah. So I've got all these notes that it's taken me 8-10 hours to transfer notes to this new yardage book that's exactly the same, except for the greens are different. But I can't use my old yardage book. So
What about just to stay on the yardage book topics? How different is the yardage book in the minor leagues? Like when I first started in 1998, I was like, all right, I got a yardage book. It was cool. And I would have trees drawn in. It was like they just took the original plans for the golf course design that had funky and then they turned it into a yardage book. And then I've noticed that there was another guy that started coming out and making more of a kind of proper tour yardage book, but there was a ton of inconsistencies. I'm like, how this guy's charging money for this yardage book when he has this information on one hole, but not the same kind of information on the other. But when you first saw the yardage books on tour compared to what you were using the years prior, what did you think? Where you were like, oh man, this is actually pretty good. Or did you still feel like you had a lot of work to do because you needed to learn courses? Or
my first years on the PGA Tour was still Gorgeous George.
Yeah, George Lucas. Yeah, me too. But I mean, I had already heard so much about his books and how good they were, and which they were. They were great. They're not as modern as today's books, but they were still, way better than the Korn Ferry Tour.
Right. They were hand-drawn mostly.
Hand-drawn and information, but the information was there.
Yeah, you had to add a lot, but most of the information was there.
So, right, and you guys are from the era of caddying where the information was key, and that was starting, when I started with the notable gaze and these guys with the up and downs and the green, green charting the greens. And then just having crazy numbers. I remember one of the other Bedpan Brad or whatever would always get one of those numbers from. And so it was kind of funny just to see how somebody would be getting a crazy number that you're like, where would you ever go get that number,
Right, yeah. And a lot of times, though, we'd share our information, if we'd see each other out at the bar or having some dinner, you have like, this head or this head, would share information and, try to help each other out. We all wanted to, we all had the same goal.
Wednesday night, caddy powwow.
Yeah.
Caddy powwow.
Oh, yeah.
We get 4 or 5 of us in a room. Hey, come over. We're going to do it at 7 o'clock.
What do you got? What do you got?
Hole number 1. What do you got?
Right.
This sprinkler head that says 123 front, it's really 117. It's way off.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you guys just help each other. And
you had to add.
Book, and he's like, how'd you get that number? And I'm like, that head is wrong. Trust me. The head is bad.
And you guys would and you guys were hanging around each other enough and walking these courses enough to trust each other. And you'd be like, all right. And just that little bit of trust would give you the confidence to.
Sure.
The books were so bad you had to. It was a 3-4 man job. The books were so
for sure. Yeah. They never had those, how you have a left and a right number for when you get the angle.
Oh yeah.
They never had those in those books. So, I mean, you could be off 10 yards sometimes on angles. And, it took me a few weeks to learn how to do like those angles. Doug LaBelle taught me a lot. He said, you got to just imagine like you have your laser and you're shooting a straight line. You would never, go to the front edge of the green and then make that crazy angle that way. It's going to get a different yardage. So he made me understand that, which was key to understand it first. But then you had to actually do the work too.
So in all your experiences now, what would you say is the most important aspect of your job, Chad?
Wow, that's a hard question, but I mean, I'd say with my guy right now, Peter Malnati, I mean, he is really good in all parts of his game. I think my biggest job on the course with him is just, when he's going the wrong direction. If it's going bad, it's pretty
So a little
easy.
bit more right now, your current situation is more the psychology game, or
I would say
get them on
yeah.
track. If you
Right, yeah.
you can sense when you want to keep them on the track and not get derailed. What about you, RV? I mean, what do you think? And it doesn't have to be current; it could be general. But what do you think the most important aspect of a caddy's job is?
I mean, my current guy is, I mean, he's amazing. His demeanor's great. He's, I don't need any psychology stuff out there. I've never seen him get upset yet, which is cool. We do a lot of work with TrackMan on the range. I take a lot of notes, and we dial in our numbers, and I carry every week. Every golf course is different. We got elevation, we got temperature, and I carry a weekly numbers of every club.
Oh, there you go. So
done,
I do the same thing. Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome that you would have, right. So you're saying the numbers are key. So six iron in Dallas might be 180, but over in New Orleans, it might only be, 175.
Right.
Or it might be 185.
Exactly, yeah.
So you guys go in with that knowledge. All right. That's cool.
And I make the sheet, and every, he's like, let me look at that sheet. We got 125, and our wedges, we have 3 numbers for each wedge.
Yeah.
That wedge, all 4 of our wedges, we have 3 different numbers for each wedge every week. Yeah. So
we do the same thing as Brad. Yeah.
When you guys first started back in 2003, technology really was just a laser and maybe a little clinometer, which gave you elevation and
I used one of those.
Green in a bubble. That did you guys ever have that big green bubble you'd lay on the green and you'd
on the green, right?
I did. Yeah,
the water
I hated
bubble.
it.
Yeah, so those were like
I hated it.
Like the technology. What do you think? Do you think it's improved the game? These TrackMans and these green reading books, and do you think it's made it easier for your jobs knowing that information, or what's your take on all the technology that we have at our fingertips now?
Well, I think. Go ahead.
Good.
I mean, Peter and I started out using. Actually, we started out not using the green book. And then I had a couple putts, we read going the wrong way. We had it like right edge and it actually went right. And that's very frustrating, very good. So I went to the lunch, it was actually at Hilton Head. And one of the caddies had a green book. And I said, can I see your green book? And I looked at it and, the 2 putts that we misread, I think if I had the green book, I would have read them correctly. So I told Peter that, we would have made the cut if that was the case. I mean, it's a big if, but, so I said, let's just try it out. And so we tried it out, it was kind of good. I was the only one that used it. He never used it or looked at it. He just asked me. He wanted me to learn how to use it and all that, which I was fine with. And so we used it for a while and it was pretty good. And then he gets really frustrated. And so do I, when you use the book, we would still read it with our eyes, obviously, but when you actually count on the book to, like, we're both not seeing it correctly and we say, okay, the book says this and it does something different, then you get frustrated. And then so we started using it.
Which is, I mean, you have to expect that because the green is alive and organic and living and changing every second of the day. And the book is just a piece of paper with arrows in it.
And so, it's so hard to
live and die by the book, I think,
so we've actually stopped using it, and we've had all our best weeks without a green book. He likes to read them on his own. He'll ask me quite a bit recently, like probably 4 or 5 putts around or whatever, sometimes more, sometimes less. But he's great on the greens, and I feel like I'm a good green reader, and he's an excellent putter. He's one of the best putters on tour statistically, and so I mean, I think certain people that really helps them. People that can't actually naturally read greens well, struggle with it. I think that could help them, but for us,
Had a phone call?
oh yeah,
That
I'm running
was
out
it?
of battery.
Oh, you need a battery charger.
Yeah.
All right, well, find a battery charger. We got just a few more minutes anyway, but Ivy, what do you think about, with the TrackMan and all this stuff that we have at our fingertips? What's your take
So
on all this?
we are not green book people either.
Okay.
Robbie is, first of all, there's no grain in the greens books. If you're on a Bermuda green, there's no grain in the greens books. So
Right. That's huge.
When I did teach, one of my specialties, or I thought my specialty was short game.
Mm-hmm.
And putting is so much feel, so much. If you're a good putter, most good putters don't even have to practice. You're a natural, you're good. Robbie's a good putter. He hardly ever pulls me in, and when it is, it's a straight putt.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's right center, left center, straight.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to have any of that confusion. Well, the book says this, and I see this, and you see that. He's just like,
that's how Peter is. Yeah.
Just I tell him all the time, putt it in the hole. Just step up, putt it in the hole. It's the easiest way to putt, and
it's natural for him.
That's pretty good. So we've had pretty good year so far.
Yeah.
Man, that is awesome. Yeah, I know you guys have started off really strong, and especially coming off a really great Korn Ferry season, and then you went right into the spring or whatever the fall, and even the start before we were sidelined. I know your guy was really coming on strong, knocking on the door multiple times. Neither one of you guys have won on the PGA Tour. Is that correct?
Nope.
Correct.
So everybody in this group today is searching for that elusive, victory lane. What's your best finish, Chad?
On the PGA Tour, I think Titlin and I had 3/5.
Oh, nice. What about you, Ivy, on the PGA Tour?
PGA Tour, fourth, I think, maybe is probably my best.
It's tough, but every time you do it, you're happy. You're like, man, we were so close. If the 13th hole would have been a little different, or
right,
it'll do your head in if you go in retrospect and if we would have only,
right.
if we wasn't so quick there. But it's cool to be in the passenger seat with these guys and getting right into the mix and into the hunt.
Definitely, yes.
It's funny, like you said earlier. It's like I was hooked. That first time, and I think competition drives us all. And I would imagine all the caddies are the same way. But so just to get off topic and just kind of hang out, have a beer. I noticed you're wearing the Pittsburgh shirt, so you must be a Steelers guy.
Yeah.
Ivy, you got a football team? He's flipping off the Steelers.
Bengals.
Oh,
I knew that.
Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. How about you?
What do the Bengals do for quarterback? What's going to happen over there?
We got rid of Dalton. We got Burrow. Number one.
Oh, yeah. He was the number one draft pick. You guys got so you guys are
good pick. Sit Dalton to your Cowboys, dude.
Yeah, I saw that. So that's a good move by Jerry Jones and crew. Don't they call him the redheaded assassin?
Red Rocket.
Red Rifle.
Red Rifle.
Red Rifle,
right, there we go.
His rifle is pretty inaccurate. He needs to get his gauge changed.
Yeah, I think it's. The city. I think it's the city that makes the difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how are the Steelers looking? I saw something where Roethlisberger was getting a beard shave, and they were tossing the ball, and everybody was starting.
He did. Yeah, he's when he got injured, he vowed that he wasn't going to shave his beard until he could throw a football again. So, he was finally starting to throw a football again. So, and everybody gave him a hard time about getting a haircut. But apparently was done privately with a, private barber in a home, not at a shop, is what I understand. So it wasn't that big a deal, but
Oh,
everybody
they
was
must
giving
have
a hard
still
time.
been under like
Yeah,
restrictions because my
and
barber's open.
yeah, they're still under restrictions up there.
Looks
Mine
like
just opened too.
IV's barber's open.
My
Yeah,
barber's open 2 times a week, buddy.
yeah.
I want to know what you guys have been doing just to, kill time. We've had like 100 days, I guess, besides drinking the beer and
Right.
what's been happening.
I just got back to playing some golf. They opened our golf courses a couple of weeks ago. So we were closed. The golf courses were closed for however long. So it's been nice. I've been playing like 2 or 3 times a week. So it's been nice. And then I'm newly engaged. We've been engaged almost a year. December will be a year.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Yeah, and she
dude.
has a little 9-year-old girl. So it's been great spending time with them. We've been together for about 6 years now. But,
Okay.
so yeah, we've just been having a good time spending time with the girls.
What about you guys are both in Florida? Your courses were closed on your side of the state, or are you just talking more about like your Muni courses? Or
Yeah, like
you said they were
my county was closed. Palm Beach County was closed, the courses, but one county north, the courses never closed, but you couldn't go play them. You had to have your driver's license and show that you were from Martin County to be able to play. So if you were from Palm Beach County where the courses were closed, you couldn't go elsewhere to play. So we had nowhere to play, but luckily now we're back open.
I got you.
Yeah.
My courses, they closed the city course for a couple times, but I haven't really played much. I've kind of dived into trying to do this happy hour stuff and having a good time doing that. It's kind of therapeutic to see you guys, even though we don't hang out much after work, it's mostly, hanging out in the Caddie area or on the course for us. But man, you guys have been pretty fun to sit and chat with.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys too. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right? I know you hadn't really gotten on the Zoom, but I've been on with a few of the other boys and a couple of the podcasts and just in general. But
you've had some good ones. I've watched them all.
I'm gonna have to watch them. I apologize, but I haven't watched them. But I'm gonna check it out.
What happens is on Monday is when they go under the strap in TGA Eau Claire. He does a good job and he's been getting some good questions going and then the happy hour is just us kind of chilling, telling the stories, figuring stuff out. That's been moved to Thursdays at 5 Eastern is when they'll drop that. And the cool thing is now that it's going pretty good. They've got Apple Podcast and Spotify. And then you can watch. The video goes up. The 3 of us on video goes up on YouTube, on the Caddie Network's YouTube channel. So that's pretty cool. And we'll see how we get it going once we get back on the road. But other than the paycheck, because that's been the number one. What are you looking forward to the most getting started? And will you guys both start at Colonial in Fort Worth?
We're in Colonial. We're not in the RBC.
Oh, the Heritage is different criteria?
Oh yeah, we're 15th alternate.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So we're in Colonial, no problem. And then we're only in. This is crazy. We're only in Hartford by like 10.
Because of the Korn Ferry status. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing.
But I mean, it goes off. The Colonial's going off of. We're 68th in FedEx.
Yep, current FedEx.
So,
yes,
we got in that, but even being 68th in FedEx at the RBC, no chance.
Oh,
no, yeah, because it's not
Yeah,
we're the other direction. We're in Colonial. Last I looked, I think either earlier today or yesterday, we were 140. I think it says 148. Is that the right number? 47?
Because of the past champions that get in.
Like a Keith Clearwater and
those guys. Oh, so they just add those spots. They're not taking away spots. Okay. I was
So yeah, we
wondering
were in by 7, so hopefully we remain in there, and then and then we're going to play the rest. I think the only other question is Memorial. It's kind of the same as Colonial, goes off
But
current.
if it goes up according to schedule, that's a lot of golf before the Memorial.
Right. Yeah.
And, that place, you got to be on your toes. You got to be rested.
Absolutely.
You got to be hitting the ball good.
Mhm.
But, I had seen on the Golf Channel that those guys in Europe have to come over and quarantine or something. So places like the Colonial are top 50 invites. But if those guys don't live over here, I don't know if they're going to come.
Oh yeah, I read.
Even Lee Westwood said he's not going to play the PGA Championship, which I thought was like, oh man,
I read 3 articles. I think Fleetwood, Westwood, and Adam Scott, which are all pretty big top players. They're not coming. They're not going to do that.
Right, because they don't live over here full time, so that's
it's just
a big
too much,
deal.
and I don't blame them. Yeah, it's just too much.
Yeah, it's too much of just the quiet time.
Right. Yeah.
And they had good explanations why not to come.
Right. Yeah.
They can't get here because of the airlines.
Right. If you can't
the airlines, and then they had to quarantine for 2 weeks before. If they come to Colonial, they got to be there next week, or 14 days before to quarantine. And
so
then if
I'm
they
wondering
go back
how those
home,
guys on that list, like for the Colonial, will not be able to come, and some of those alternates get in.
It's going to be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting game, especially no fans. What do you think about no fans?
Yeah, I don't think too much about it. It'll be like Brad
and
I, we've been on the Korn Ferry Tour.
We worked on the Korn Ferry Tour.
We're used to that.
All about.
Yeah, so
it's kind of what I talked to my player, to kind of work out the schedule, and he's like, well, because there's not going to be a bag room. He's like, you know what? Maybe we just use the car we'll just use the car as the locker room like we did on the Korn Ferry Tour and just stay out at the clubhouse and
meet out in the parking lot, grab the clubs, put your shoes on.
Yeah. So really, I'm actually going to try and stay wherever my players staying or fairly close,
Yeah.
That's my plan. And then, I'm just hoping that we can get through this and get some events in. And even if we do, do the testing and somebody, test positive, that we're able to keep moving forward and not, not get shut down.
That's my biggest concern too.
Because we definitely want football. What's your take on football with no fans? Would it bother you? Because how many times do you go to a live football? How many times? When was the last time you went and watched the Bengals play live? Maybe in Tampa? Never. Yeah.
I used to, but before I started traveling on tour and living in Florida, now I'm not going to go travel to watch a football game. I'll watch it on TV.
Yeah.
When I lived back up in Pittsburgh, Latrobe,
yeah,
I used to go to quite a few games, but
because it was close, right?
Right.
And for me, I mean, to get to the Cowboys, it's so expensive anymore. But I was talking with my brother yesterday. I'm like, I just hope they play football. And
that's the same way I feel.
And I'm thinking to myself, and no fans, it's no big deal, because we all had our takes on contract disputes and shit like that. I'm like, dude, our quarterback, he needs to just nut up, sign a contract, because they're not selling hot dogs or Philly cheesesteaks or jerseys.
Yeah.
They might just say, you know what, screw you. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go with the Red Rocket over here, red-headed assassin or whatever they call him, for $2 million. He's already signed.
Yeah. Good luck with that one.
Yeah, good luck.
Tannehill moved cities and became a superstar. What about the red-headed assassin, the red rifle?
That's it. It's actually a good scenario. Yeah, you're right.
Right? That's what we have to tell ourselves. Yeah.
Still got my Buckeyes though.
Oh, yeah, and being a Saturday football guy, I mean, that it's going to be amazing to get I don't know what their plans or if you've heard anything. Like right now, I'm missing baseball. I'm watching this Korean baseball every morning when I wake up with my coffee going, man, the Korean Twins are my team. You know?
I know. I've been watching articles and reading articles about the Korean baseball. Yeah.
So I don't know if they're trying to model or something. I don't watch enough news to know, but I'm like, well, if they're playing baseball in Korea, maybe we're going to get close. Yeah. Something. These guys have all got to be working on it. If the tour's working on it, and
oh, for sure, yeah.
I heard some good news. So maybe baseball's going to start soon. It's just going to be weird not going through a training camp, or I don't know what they're going to do. They haven't really – everything's kind of in the dark when it comes to the other major league sports besides golf. They've kind of been at the forefront. NASCAR, I know, is going pretty hard. I watched the end of the NASCAR race on Sunday. It was cool, but even then, the guy he goes to do the donuts, and he gets out of the car and he goes, man, this is weird. I'm happy to win, but usually by the time I got all this smoke going, the fans are in a frenzy. It's pretty fun. What about, we're getting close to the end of the line here for the happy hour. Is there any questions you guys got, or you want to put something out there? You got a cause or something, you want some awareness, you want to here's your chance, I guess, if you want, put something out there, and then let everybody that's listening, because our listeners are going up, weekly. It's pretty fucking awesome that, the golf fans out there are, they're starting to catch on, and they want to kind of hear our stories. They want to hear what we have to say. So if you got something out there, put it out there.
Well, for me, my player's girlfriend's a emergency room nurse.
Oh, wow.
So she's in Birmingham, and, she's obviously dealt with it as hard as you could deal with it. So, anything these people could do for our first responders and our, nurses and doctors, and, that's got to be a tough thing to do, man. Absolutely. Risking your life every day at work.
Right. It is a tough thing. We should just have a moment of silence for those guys, and just a good prayer, good word for them, because they are definitely battling every day. And I have older parents, so they have to go to doctor's appointments where normally people go in a pair. Now you got to go in by yourself. So if any of us got sick, we, like you said, your fiance wouldn't be able to go with you, or you wouldn't be able to go with her. So yeah, let's give a couple of seconds for those guys real quick. And awesome. Let them know. Good. Hey, Brad, thanks for bringing that up. Chad, you got anything you want to put out there? You got anything special you want the world to know? Golf fans, anyway.
Right. Yeah. I always, we all know Bruce Edwards, right? But ALS. Yeah. I have a good friend of mine who lives right here beside me in Abaco and Jupiter, and he has ALS, and it's just, I kind of got to know Bruce Edwards through a buddy of mine named Worm, who caddied for Rocco Media. And I think you know him, D-Lo. Worm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to know Bruce through him, and, it was kind of hard getting to know him. And then right after I got to know him, that happened and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah. My friend down here has ALS, but he actually did a study. I forget what they call it. I forget, but he was like one of 20 people, I think, and he's the only one still surviving. Like, they did a test.
Oh yeah, it's called a case study. They're doing.
Yeah, and they tried.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So yeah, and then,
so that means they might be closer to a cure, but if you were to put something out there for a cause, all these ALS and
for sure, yeah.
Awesome. All right, so before we leave, before we get done, I kind of want to do a quick fire. And so it's been kind of on my mind because I've been reading. For you, Chad, let me know, what is the last book you read, cover to cover?
It's called The Last Putt. It was about Oklahoma State and Stanford. in the national championship, and Chris Tidlin was on that team, and they beat Tiger Woods and your boy Nota Begay.
Nice.
So yeah, so that was
The last putt. Oh, that's fucking epic. That's funny.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've been reading golf books.
I'll bet you'd love it. I mean, because
I'm probably gonna have
everybody
to
in there. Yeah.
I'll have to do. I worked for Chris Cox for a year.
Cox, he was on that team.
He was on that team. Yeah, exactly. So I know all those guys through that connection. And like you said, I caddied for Nota Begay in 2005. For a lot
you would really enjoy it. I think you should read that one.
Okay,
yeah. Got some time.
2009, I was caddying for Nota Begay. He was kind of his last hurrah to try. So on the quick fire question I'm going to give for you, Ivy, is you've done a lot of home improvement to your place there, and you built a golf simulator and all this. How long did it take you to kind of build out that little bar that you're sitting at? You know, that little Florida room, I guess what it is, but you've got it set up pretty nice. How long did that take you?
Gosh, it's a never-ending process. I should flip the camera so you guys can see it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay, so that was kind of a shit question. I'm new at this quick fire deal. I did one. How many nails are in that fucking place? Or screws? How many tools do you have?
I've got a full range of everything, brother.
Oh, look at that.
I built that all myself. So it's a bar. I got the TV. I had to turn the TV off because you couldn't hear me. The fan, because it's 110 degrees down here.
That's what Texas heat. Is that an old school boom box? Oh, no, that's your pit.
It's a grill sink.
Oh, nice.
That's really nice.
Look at this guy.
Into the bar,
guys.
And then the golf simulator.
Oh man!
Yeah, what a man cave! What a place to hang out.
And a putting green.
I want to come hang out there.
I never leave this place. This is for us bad golfers. Can you see the net?
Oh yeah, I see it.
Oh yeah.
That's the anti-shank net.
That's a secondary anti-shank net. I went to play golf today after reading all these books, and I was like, still, don't shank it. Don't shank it. I'm like, you can do this. You can do this. Walking up, you're like, oh man, don't shank. Oh, you can do this. I think I did shank one on the range though, so at least
every day, yeah.
At least we know there was one in there. But it was fun. I threw a little 82 on the board from the blue tee.
Nice.
There you go.
It was fun. It was cool. My body's wrecked right now. I'm sore.
That's par for me, 82.
Yeah, that's pro par.
That's pro par.
I was scrambling. I might have been a little bit out of my shoes, but I had a few double bogeys, 3 doubles, so that's pretty good. I got on a nice little run in there. I felt good about it.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, that is really awesome stuff. I really appreciate you guys coming on, hanging out with me, having a beer, telling some stories about the minor leagues. I'm sure there's thousands more questions, so maybe what we'll do, when we get back on the road, we'll do it again where we could sit at a bar and get a camera out and let these people know what's up. Have some
that'd be fun.
Come up with some questions, but in the meantime, you guys stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you guys in knuckle bumping or air fiving or whatever it is.
Air 5, yeah.
Air 5.
Yeah,
Air 5
whatever it is we can do.
Yeah.
But that's our show, the Happy Hour, Caddies United Happy Hour podcast. So I hope you guys enjoyed. We had Chad Antus and Brad IV.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Tilo.
You got it.
Thanks, Tilo. See you, Brad.
Much love.
All right. You